Welcome everybody. My name is Chris Teal and I am the director of the second annual Fayetteville Jazz Festival. Now, as you're noticing right now, this is in a setting that is a little bit different than we were originally expecting, being able to do things in person. And so this is hopefully going to be the second best thing considering all of these circumstances. Today, we're kicking things off with the festival with our artist in residence, Garrett Schmidt, and we're going to get a chance not only to hear him play and improvise and talk about the trumpet, his primary instrument. He's going to work with a couple of students from the University of Arkansas, and you're going to get to hear them perform and see his feedback and just what a great teacher he is. Some things that you as a listener, as musicians out there watching this might be able to take away and try in your own playing, whether you're a trumpet player or not. He's going to dig into some improvisational concepts as well as just trumpet related things that even if you're not a trumpet player, I'm sure that you're going to appreciate and enjoy. We're going to kick things off actually with a conversation that I had with Garrett just about music, about life in general, what it means to be a professional educator and trumpet player in this day and age, especially considering the circumstances that we're working with right now, where everybody is creating and hopefully making music from their homes with the intent of getting back together in the future. We're also going to spend some time listening to his latest album release, Prairie Tales, that has been out on Outside In Music for a couple years. And we're going to listen to some tracks from that so we can get the experience of hearing Garrett in context playing with his peers and his original compositions. If you haven't listened to that album in its entirety, you're going to get the chance to check out some select cuts and hear Garrett talk about that in our conversation. All right, I'd just like to give a huge thanks to a lot of the people and organizations that have been instrumental, pun intended, in bringing together the second annual Fayetteville Jazz Festival. First off, the University of Arkansas Music Department, which was integral in sponsoring the musicians, being able to pay adequately for their fantastic performance and educational workshops that we're going to see here. The University of Arkansas Community Music School for all of their logistical and creative help, in particular Nastasha Riley, Kim Jones, Austin McFarland, and Jacob Esterline. So could not have done any of this without you. This is huge, huge thank you. Also, the Institute for Creative Music, which is an organization that I co-direct. We are involved in a creative capacity and have a lot going on. If you are, again, stuck at home and looking for musical things to do, be creative, subscribe to our channel, which you are watching this video on, and you can learn songs from home, learn to improvise, and there's actually full courses you can do to get involved with that. The IfCM, as it's called, along with the Community Music School here, are putting together, in lieu of an in-person summer camp, which we've been doing for a couple years, we're doing an entirely virtual camp. So as everybody should be staying home and keeping themselves busy and healthy, you can still have a virtual summer camp experience by enrolling and doing that for the IfCM summer camp. That's available for youth anywhere from the ages of 11 to 18 and adults 18 on up. So pretty much anybody who's been playing their instrument or singing for a year or so. We have levels that are available if you're a complete beginner, have been playing for a while, know some songs, or if you've been playing for quite a while and want to get challenged by some of the great teachers and educators that you're going to see in the workshops tomorrow. Our faculty for this summer is probably going to expand depending on the number of folks that we have signed up and able to do sectionals on different instruments. But our core faculty this year, we're really thrilled to have Doug Stone, saxophonist from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Matthew Golombisky, bassist and composer, coming all the way from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Well, staying where he is, but virtually being there. And with us for the first time this summer, vocalist, pianist Lauren Lee, who is in New York City right now. And I will be, of course, joining as a drum set performer and just kind of all around working with the students. So we're very excited to be able to offer that this summer. So check out links below. There are plenty of opportunities to support workshops and continuing camps, festivals like this. If you are able to, there's some donate links below. The IfCM is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and so your donations are tax exempt, and you can specifically have some of that money go towards any of the artists that you're seeing this weekend, or just go towards general support of scholarships and other programming. So I hope that that is enough of a preamble, and we can go ahead and jump in. Enjoy listening to these performances, workshops, and conversations with fantastic musicians from around the world as part of the second annual Fayetteville Jazz Festival. Garrett Schmidt, thank you for joining us today to kick off the second annual Fayetteville Jazz Festival. And of course, this is our first go at a virtual festival. Thank you for being here.
Yes, Corona edition. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just, in the taping of this, had a chance to listen through a bit of the lead-off track of your recent release as a leader, the song Theos from Prairie Tales. And yeah, enjoying that. I've been listening through it today and the last couple of days. And yeah, it's really great to hear you play again, especially in context and considering the situation we're in where not a lot of us are doing a lot of interactive playing.
But, yeah, we are stuck. Yeah. We are stuck trying to interact through, our phones, our computers like this, which, it's a good excuse to see people that you haven't seen or talked to in a long time. But right. It's also a lot more fun to do this type of stuff in person and play together. And but I think everybody's doing the best with the situation that they can,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I know that we've chatted a little bit, but what's your situation at home in terms of like where you're at, you're teaching, you're playing, this family situation?
Yeah. So I live close to St. Louis and I teach at a school, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, where we are the Cougars. This is a brand new shirt, but it looks like I've had it for 12 years.
It's aged.
It's like fine wine, right? So I've been teaching there. I just submitted for tenure. So assuming that this pandemic doesn't change anybody's minds at a very high level, I will have tenure, which is cool. So I've been there for 6 years. And I live kind of out in the country. It's like a country subdivision, but it's me, my wife, and my son, Theo. And right now, it's a lot of Zoom lessons and FaceTiming and Google Duoing with students and Zooming our jazz improv and combo classes and just having a lot of discussions and giving some advice for like short-term goals that is achievable when everybody's circumstances is different and challenging. So right now it's like 24/7 being a stay-at-home dad and doing lessons with kids on phones and computers,
for sure,
which is definitely not ideal. But the goal for I think everybody is just to get to the finish line for this semester and provide as much as you can, as much help and support as you can, and hope that things get sorted out sooner than later.
Yeah. What kind of things are you telling your students in terms of goals to focus on? And I guess like, how are you applying that to your own practice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The real issue with all of this is that, like you don't know what anybody's home life is like in the first place. And now you throw this situation into it. Like you don't know if somebody has a sibling that needs to be on the computer to do their homework for public school or private school or whatever. You don't know if they have a good internet connection. You don't know if they have a good microphone to record themselves playing. So really the thing that most folks are able to do at the same level is listen to music. Like most folks have a smartphone. Most folks have Spotify or YouTube or Apple Music, and most folks have headphones. So like transcription and listening is something that hopefully folks can still do to a decent level. I know transcribing, especially on drum set, would be hard if your whole family is at home and somebody's trying to do math upstairs and you're trying to do your Tony Williams transcription. But I'm really just encouraging folks to listen as much as they can. And that's a lot of what I've been doing too, because I'm watching my almost 2-year-old son most of the time, and the trumpet can be a relatively unforgiving instrument volume wise. So doing a lot of listening, a lot of singing, stuff to try and not annoy my family as much as possible.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, kind of taking yourself back in the time machine. How does what you're looking for your students to do right now? I mean, I guess like, all things considered, how does that relate to the way that you were first, learning the trumpet, first of all, but also like learning jazz and getting involved in that when you were, and I don't know, I guess like when did you start doing that also?
Yeah. Well, as far as like trumpet, well, I'll start with trumpet. My oldest brother played trumpet in high school, and both of my older brothers are musicians, and I just wanted to be like them, basically jamming in the basement. Um, so I actually started playing music on guitar,
Mhm.
and then my oldest brother got a drum set, and then I started playing drums, and then he was playing trumpet, and then I got his hand-me-down trumpet. So it's really just like trying to follow in the footsteps of my brothers so that they'd let me hang out with them, basically.
Yeah.
Because I was a crybaby. I was like the worst little brother on the planet. Um, there's a lot of Nintendo controller throwing at a young
Sure.
age,
Yeah.
done by me, not by them. So, and then I went through like a traditional, uh, beginning band, working on trumpet.
Hmm.
Middle school, same thing. High school, same thing.
Hmm.
I didn't really start taking anything really serious until I got to undergrad.
Yeah.
Um, and I had a great classical trumpet professor. Um, his name is Mark DeGoda. He teaches at Auburn in Alabama now.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it's great. And the best part about these lessons was being able to hear him play in person.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a huge, being in the situation that we're in now. Like, I will never take that for granted ever again.
Yeah.
Because his sound, doesn't matter what type of microphone you have, it's different than when you're sitting in the exact same room as that person. But he taught me a great deal about the fundamentals and really helped me figure out how to do things efficiently.
Hmm.
Um, and the same with jazz. I had there wasn't a jazz trumpet teacher at my undergrad, so I studied with the jazz piano professor.
Hmm.
Um, and he's a great bebopper
Yeah.
from like kind of the Indiana
Hmm.
school of thought,
Sure.
um, like David Baker
Hmm.
type stuff. And it was great. And all of that in-person stuff I miss so much.
Hmm.
Uh, I hope, I mean, we're going to get to stop saying that soon, I hope. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so like learning digitally
Hmm.
is a little bit different. Um, but I feel like jazz music has been passed down the same way since 1920 or
Hmm.
whenever you want to consider jazz starting.
Hmm.
And it's through recordings.
Yeah.
Like I can tell you all the right notes to a chord. I can tell you all the scales. But if you want to play like the giants
Hmm.
of jazz, you have to listen to them, not me or
Yeah.
any. You have to
Right.
be listening to those recordings,
Yeah.
uh, and deeply listening, not
Hmm.
like passively listening.
Hmm.
Um, it's like when you're texting and driving. It's like you're passively driving, but you're
Yeah.
actively texting, and you may be really good at it,
Sure.
but maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
That's like put jazz on in the car.
Uh-huh.
You're actively driving, but you're passively listening to jazz. You got to
Right.
sit down and
Hmm.
actively listen to jazz and put, all distractions aside,
Yeah.
which is hard to do.
Sure.
Um, it's a little bit easier now because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah. Right. No excuses.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if I answered your original question or not.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really helpful. And I guess that like the observation you made it about, even doing something like listening in the car, still puts the listening of the music on a secondary function. Hopefully, I mean, hopefully your focus and attention, even though it's something you've probably done a lot, is on driving and being aware and being safe and things like that. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, like that's an interesting concept of having, even just like safe listening practices, like probably means, doing it, being, whether it's by yourself or with a group of friends, like everybody being there for the same reason, to listen. And, maybe if you stop the recording to have a conversation, or just, I think that's definitely something that I miss a lot about maybe a lot about just being with musical friends, whether it's kind of being isolated in a situation like this, or just going back to like being in school where everyone is there to study in a certain way, or going back as early as high school and junior high, like listening with friends and having those sort of formative experiences where you're listening in a really focused way, and just having those really visceral reactions, and just like, oh, that's so great, and sharing that. Was there a recording that you can point out that was like a really great turning point for you as a listener, or just like inspiring to you, that made you have that kind of like, oh, this is great moment?
Yeah, I think as a listener, most trumpet players at a young age are infatuated with one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you just tell me what that is, since it's so obvious?
Playing high. Yeah.
Right. So the first record that I got for Christmas
Mm-hmm.
was, I think it was called This Is Jazz 16,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Maynard Ferguson.
Yep.
And it was like the theme from Star Trek and Birdland,
Yep.
and MacArthur Park.
Uh-huh.
And that actually didn't really floor me that much, which,
Yeah.
looking back, is like kind of hilarious now.
Uh-huh.
But my brothers were a lot more musically mature than I was at a young age.
Yeah.
And my brother Jeremy, back when folks would download music illegally,
Uh-huh.
and maybe I shouldn't throw him under the bus here. You could always edit that part out. We totally bought this.
I think the statute of limitations has passed on.
That's true.
He's fine. Yeah.
That's true. He found this Japanese import album of Freddie Hubbard called Topsy.
Okay.
It was only released in Japan, and it was basically a standards record.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like late, I don't want to say late Freddie, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely not 60s Freddie, not 70s, maybe like late 80s or 90s.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And there was something about, he played this Ellington tune in a Harmon.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember what it's called now, but I was just floored by it. I was like, how do you get such a like round sound in a Harmon, and it's buzzing,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just like killing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was probably like 16 at the time, maybe.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, there's certainly some value to listening to this stuff. And then I didn't listen to it for another 2 years, or didn't listen to jazz regularly for like another 2 years, until I got to undergrad.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the only music I was listening to
Mm-hmm.
during undergrad. And those visceral experiences where there was this alto player at school that was always just leaps and bounds above me in every way. Like, he knew all the tunes, he could improvise, he had all the technique. And there's an older trumpet player there who was the same. He knew all the important records, and we all just got together and listened to those records all the time. And what really became obvious, especially now, is that having a kid and a wife and a house to take care of and a teaching gig, it's like, I didn't realize how much time you had like to do work during your undergrad and your master's until you're out of it. And it's like, oh, I could wait like 2 weeks to do all of my laundry in undergrad, because no, I'll just go home and my mom will do it.
Yeah. No one's going to smell you that closely.
Yeah. And even now I'd wait even longer, because I haven't smelled anybody in 30 days,
Yeah, it's great.
But it's like, wow, there's so much time to do all this stuff at a like appropriate level, because all you have to do is go to 3 classes a day and do your homework, and then holy cow, you have so many hours in the day. So it's, I mean, I certainly miss aspects of that, just having time to sit down and listen on a deep level without a bunch of distractions.
Right. Do you think that you've gotten better at condensing your ability to work into smaller times now that that's what's available, or what's that process done from then to now?
Yeah, I think the biggest change in that aspect is just trumpet related. It's like when I was younger, I still had so many things to to really sort through.
Mhm.
Like I need to figure out my articulation. I need to figure out how to get more finesse into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't mean to say I don't practice all the time, because I still do try to practice regularly, but the intense, routine driven
Mhm.
practice has gone away because of necessity. Like
Sure.
I can't do it anymore.
Mhm.
Um, so the way I practice now is really, really condensed. You know, it's a brief warm up,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like riding a bike. It's like I still remember how to articulate. I still remember how to do my lip slurs, stuff like that. And then it's like super condensed on whether I just listen to like the new Nick Payton record and there's like 8 bars of something I want to rip. It's like, I got to get it right now before this lesson comes. I got to get it right now before Theo wakes up. I got to get it right now before my wife comes home.
Mhm.
Or you know, a lot of the work that I do in the St. Louis area is kind of like lead trumpet based, playing the shows, like the Broadway shows that come through the big theaters.
Right.
So, you know, finding time to work out some of the tricky passages in that.
Mhm.
It's very rarely the 2 hour practice session that was possible when I was much younger.
Right.
It's probably like a good focused 30 minutes on maybe one thing, just
Right.
one thing.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. With, I don't know, I guess comparing those type of gigs, or thinking of, so if you have like a Broadway gig or something like that, versus your recording, what is your approach to, I don't know, to learning the material for that? And I guess, you know, taking for granted that, you know, especially with your own band, you've written the material and you know, probably of course have it a bit more internalized and an idea of what you want to do with it, versus something where, you know, you're a sideman or something like that. What's the process for preparing for those type of gigs? How's that different?
From a trumpet standpoint, I don't think they're any different.
Cool.
From a music standpoint, they're way different.
Sure.
But like my goal 1,000% of the time is to sound like I know how to play the trumpet. That comes through, you know, having a consistent sound in all the registers, having clean articulation, which is especially important for the show type work. Or people say legit or jazz or whatever. I'll just call it legit for now. I don't know if I love the term, but
Sure.
it's easier than saying the Broadway show type work that I do in the town where I live. So trumpet, it's all the same. I think sound concept or tone quality may be a little bit different, but for the shows, like there's so many reference recordings that you can go to. Like this is how the Sound of Music was played in 1980. This is how, well, Phantom doesn't have trumpets anymore. Lion King doesn't either. This is how West Side Story was in the original movie soundtrack. Like you can just go and try and mimic that stuff, which is what we're trying to do with a lot of our improvisation techniques anyways.
Sure.
But then you go to like your music where there's almost no expectation, which can be good, which can be bad. But for like my band or my music, I just prep the composition. Like this is what the composition is, and then if you hire the right people or play with the right people, the music just happens on its own, you know.
It's less to say.
Yeah, which I was unbelievably fortunate. I'm not bragging. I have a cush gig. Like the jazz faculty that I work with are top notch. They're like the most killing players in the area. And we flew in Chris Ziemba to play piano on the record, who is obviously probably my favorite person on the planet.
Sure.
And a killing piano player.
Yeah.
But I guess really the only thing I did is I write the composition and then I just practice improvising over it without a backing track or anything, because the record wasn't made yet.
Right.
So it's a lot of pre-composition work and then just improvising and hoping that it turns out the way you want it to whenever it happens.
Right. And in the case of that, when you're practicing, you know, without an external reference, how does that go exactly? Like, what's your process of, what's in your head when you're improvising? Are you thinking of like the set of, the whole chord changes through a sequence that you write, or do you start by zooming in on a small section is going to be tricky? Like, what is that practice like without a recording like for you? Because you've had a lot of experience with that.
Yeah, it's a combination of both of those things. First of all, like I don't want to say I've been pigeonholed most of my life, but most of the work that I do is not on the improvisation side of things. It's I play in brass quintets, show stuff, legit work, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. Like it's probably my forte. Like I probably get hired to do the thing that I'm best at, which is nice.
Sure.
So doing your own record of all your own compositions while being like a jazz teacher at a school, like those are two wildly different things.
Sure.
Like teaching improvisation requires, a knowledge of history, a knowledge of past great solos. You have to know transcriptions and stuff. You have to be able to describe what this language is to students. And then whenever you do your own record, you don't want to sound like everything that you teach your students.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want to play boo ba doo be doo ba. I just want to be ba all day long. I don't want to do that on my record, right? I want to. So really, what I practiced was like taking these small pieces of music, like Theos, the first 4 bars, even like taking that tune and just like, how can I connect all of these chord changes without something that sounds like stock language? And stock language is a part of who I am, so stock language comes out very often.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. Like there's a reason it's stock language. It's because it's functional and it's beautiful, right? But really, I just wanted to try and find my own voice. And I found that it was really easy to do that when you're playing without recordings. It's like whenever you're playing with a Take the A Train backing track from YouTube, you're going to sound like you're trying to play with those people. But when you're kind of on your own, there's not really any rules. There's not really any expectations. So just try and go with the flow. Whenever I went to the recording session, I told myself one thing. I was like, you're not going to play any high notes today. Like no high notes, because that's what I do most of the time. It's like, try not to play anything above high C.
Cool.
I think the highest note on the record is a D, so I did okay.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And it happens in the first track.
Okay.
Which
get it. Yeah.
I lasted really long going for it. Yeah. It's like, don't play any high notes. First take. But yeah, I think isolating. I was listening to one of, I think his name is Eric, the guy that sent the Well You Needn't track to me or to you and then uploaded it. I was thinking, it'd be really great for him and great for everybody. It's like, if you just take the second 4 bars of that bridge and just loop it over and over and over, because it's all a half step movement. None of these things are going in the direction that they're supposed to. And as improvisers, we have to practice things that are challenging to us. We don't need to practice Take the A Train over and over and over and over and over again. We need to take those 2 bars that I suck at and shed. And I think doing it away from a play along is even better, because you can take your time. Like, what sounded good there? How can I exploit that to the next level? What sounded bad? How can I try and omit that from every part of my playing? It's, I don't know, sometimes it can be kind of like a lethargic process, but I find that it's the best way to do it. Just looping.
Yeah, absolutely. Before maybe we jump into listening to another track, are there any tunes from your recording that really stand out in terms of things that you had to dig into that that you wrote but that was really challenging and you had to spend a lot of time working on in order to get to the point where you were feeling comfortable? Or like what song would be a good example of that?
Well, I can tell you there's one song that I don't solo on.
Uh-huh.
And that's because I worked on it for a really long time,
Yeah.
and I thought I sounded like crap. So I was like, I'm giving this to the sax player. Like, I'll just not solo on this one. It's hard.
Yeah.
I think that's one good reason to like write your own music,
Mm-hmm.
is to write things that are maybe a little bit out of your comfort zone, so you can
Sure.
experience some type of growth when you're
Mm-hmm.
practicing them. That one kind of put me in my own place. So which one is that? The Afro-Cuban 681.
Yeah.
Track 3, I think is what it is. No, it's the second track. I should
Second.
know. I have like 900 of these things sitting in my
Right.
closet.
Yeah. It's holding up. Is it Turmoil?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That one got me.
Yeah.
As far as like, I think the first track is the one that was the other really challenging one for me. Most of how I compose is just like at the piano, like, and it's a painstaking process because I'm a trumpet player and I suck at piano. So like all of those tunes were just written at the piano, but Dios was the first tune that I tried this concept that Dave Ravello taught me. He's one of the writing teachers and jazz band leaders at Eastman, where we went to school.
Yeah.
Which I don't have to tell you that, obviously.
I was there.
You were there.
But they weren't. Yeah.
They weren't. Yeah. So whenever I got this job at SIUE, I learned that I'd be running the big band, and I was like, I really want to be able to like write more modern sounding big band music. So I drove to Rochester and spent like 3 days just in his house talking about this stuff. Awesome. It's kind of like a 20th century way of composing away from the piano, away from the keyboard, just on staff paper. So I came up with like one like grouping of notes that I really, really liked. And I just took those 6 notes, that that was my pitch set that I derived from nothing.
Yeah.
And then I sat at the piano for like 3 months and tried to figure out the rest of the tune.
Right.
So I think that was probably the most challenging tune for me to get a grasp on trumpet wise.
Yeah. Just
because a lot of the chord changes, like the bass note moves in half steps, but maybe the chord isn't, like if it's a 5 chord, maybe it doesn't go to the 1, it goes somewhere else, but the bass note works with it. It's
some deception.
A lot of that. Yeah. But hopefully it doesn't all sound like deception, except for maybe my playing. Maybe I deceived some people. It's like, oh yeah, he doesn't really know what he's doing.
I was promised high notes.
Yeah. But I think that was probably the hard one for me. And the title track, Prairie Tales, is kind of in a weird key. Like that's my F sharp, which is not an amazing key. So it takes a lot of time to work out some stuff. And a lot of people frown upon like working out solos. I'm not going to say I wrote down everything that I played on that record, because that's a lie. But if you listen to, 2 takes of Clifford Brown playing Joy Spring from that Max Roach and Clifford Brown record, he's playing a lot of the same stuff. So he goes in with a plan that he can execute, and it's killing. Right?
Right.
That's the type of like prep work we have to do for records, because you got to pay for the amount of time that you're there.
Yep. Gotta be ready. Cool. Well, let's take a pause and we'll listen to another track, and then we'll be right back. talk a little bit about the band on the recording, and I guess like how you got to know them, and what are some things about them individually or as a group that that you enjoy playing with them, and what inspires you to play?
No, I don't want to do that. No, uh, cut and end it. End it. So most of the record consists of the jazz faculty at SIUE.
Uh-huh.
Jason Swagler is the head of the jazz area and the alto sax player on the record. Zebediah Briskovich is the bass teacher and bassist on the record. Miles Vanderveer is the music business and drum professor, and the drummer on the record.
Uh-huh.
And then, like I mentioned earlier, Chris Ziemba, a friend of ours from Eastman, and now the pianist with the Airman and Note, is a piano player. I got to know Chris at Eastman, being, the corn-fed boy that I was going to Eastman. I was a little bit out of my comfort zone, and he made that transition very, very easy. He was, I don't like using the term like he was my rock, but he was somebody that I needed desperately to get through that degree. And then we moved to New York City at the same time and lived together up until I moved back to Illinois. Actually, there may have been like a 6-month period where he moved out to live with his now wife, and then wife, now and then wife, now and then wife, every once in a while.
It's continuous, just for anybody who's wondering. Yeah.
That's bad. We can edit that out.
Yeah. Hi, Lauren.
Yeah. And then everybody else I met on my interview at SIUE. But actually, I went to SIUE's jazz camp as I think an 8th grader.
Okay.
I grew up maybe 20 minutes away from the school that I teach at, which is it's super nice being close to my parents, close to my wife's parents. Yep. Especially now with my son, their grandkid. Yep. So I went to the jazz camp. I want to say this was I don't want to say what year it was, but Miles, the drummer, was my teacher for the jazz camp. He was the combo leader for my jazz camp, which is hilarious to kind of think about. But he's killing. They're all amazing musicians. And was there a second part to the question? Now I'm just like reminiscing about how I've met all these people.
That's part of it. I guess in putting together a band, aside from obviously like knowing these people and getting along with them really well, what are things that you enjoy about like their, I don't know whether it's their group dynamic in terms of the way that everybody plays together, or if there's anything individually? I know that playing with another horn player is kind of a special thing versus working with the rhythm section. Like what are those interactions like?
Yeah, I think the main reason, I mean, proximity has a lot, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but like these are the people that I spend the most time with. So these are the people that I'm most comfortable emoting with, or asking them like, what do you think about doing something this way, or should I be doing something different? Or it's the whole degree plan at SIUE is a very collaborative thing where if somebody thinks we should be doing something else, like we talk about it as a group, and maybe we make changes, maybe we decide that the old way is still the good way. It was a really, really comfortable situation to put myself in. And the 3 people, especially the SIUE folks, that are chameleons, really. It's like, they're all amazing jazz players, but they also function in every musical setting that you can imagine, whether it's, top 40, wedding band, country, funk, any of the genres that you can go hear live, they excel at those genres. So those are the people that I have always wanted to surround myself by, people that inspire me as musicians and challenge me as a musician.
Yeah.
Um, and not like this is no pity party by any way, but like listen to the record and find out who the weak link is. It's the trumpet player. Like everybody else is killing. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's so good. And it's, you know, they played really, really well together. And
Yeah.
all three of them, Jason, Miles, and Zeb, did their undergrad and their masters at
Oh, wow.
SIUE. So
Awesome.
they've been playing together for probably at least 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're not 50, you know. So it's
Right.
like
Mhm.
from their formative years up until their very, very professional careers now,
Mhm.
they've been in the trenches together, you know.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Ziemba
Mhm.
is also one of the biggest, like, I just feel like he can fit in with any rhythm section at
Mhm.
all.
Yeah.
Um, his ears, he has elephant ears. They're enormous, like,
Yeah.
and he's such a beautiful player,
Mhm.
human, and like his rhythmic concept is bonkers.
Oh, yeah.
Um, it's like you don't come across a lot of pianists like that. And who else? I mean, I don't. Who else would you put on it? Right?
Yeah.
I don't even
Yep.
know. Like of the
Yep.
people that I'm comfortable asking them to do something for me and paying them for it, like all of these people are at top of the list. You
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely. And I mean,
and they're a
something.
good hang too. That's also
Right.
the other part of it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, something like for me listening to it, and maybe kind of as a callback to something you were talking about earlier, um, like everybody individually, you know, is really interesting to listen to in a way that it's not derivative of like, okay, I hear, you know, Chris is playing, you know, Bill Evans or Herbie Hancock licks or something like that, or that, you know, okay, this sounds like Paul Motion or, you know, Bob Moses or something like that. It's everybody individually has such a great sound concept, and yourself, of course, very much included. Um, but it comes together in a way that like your ears are going towards the soloist, but mostly like I find myself just listening to the band and the interaction, and that it sounds like people who've been playing together, you know, whether it's the whole group or different, you know, orientations for, you know, 10, 20 years. And I think that's something you really can't fake, you know, if it's just I'm going to have a recording and bring in, you know, the cover, whoever's on the cover of Downbeat or something like that, and like
Mhm.
that, you know, they might be great individually, but you can't really fake, you know, what you guys are getting on that, just like that band sound and that interaction and that sense of, you know, fun and playfulness too.
Yeah, and I mean, we only spent 2 days recording stuff, and they weren't super long days. Like maybe one day was 5 hours, maybe the next day was three.
Yeah.
But that's like the amount of fun I had listening to them play, you know, those tunes. It doesn't even matter if it's those tunes. It's like just the amount of fun I would have listening to them play anything.
Sure.
It's like heartwarming, you know. It's like that's the reason to do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was talking with Zeb, like, so Miles, the drummer, he also mixed
Oh,
the
awesome.
record. Like he is a master, like recording.
Hmm.
He's a recording whiz. Like
Awesome.
he did everything, and the sounds that we got day one was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like very little tweaking needed to happen because he's so good. Well, he's really great at the back end, but what he did, like even before the recording started, was
Yeah.
amazing.
Hmm.
Um, but I was talking to Zeb, the bass player, after like we kind of got like a final version and listened to a couple of tracks together. He's like, you know, it doesn't sound like anything. It just sounds like us.
Yeah.
It sounds like us playing,
Hmm.
and I think that's a great, like that's a great thing. I didn't, you know, when you write new stuff, it might be inspired by a lot of people say like, wow, this sounds like a Tom Harrell composition or
Hmm.
something like that.
Sure.
Or there's like one progression that I don't know, there's like four bass movements that sound like a Maria Schneider tune,
Hmm.
or like those super humbling, and by no
Yeah.
means is any of this better. It's way worse than all that stuff. Um, but it is nice to have something that's mine and somewhat original, and
Hmm.
maybe it doesn't sound exactly like something else. Um, the other thing is like I didn't have to tell them anything.
Yeah.
Like you don't. if you hire the right folks, like, here's the tune.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to kind of go like this. And then 2 takes, done. 2 takes, done. 2 takes, done. It's like, it's crazy. And it made it a much more enjoyable process than like, oh, well, I really want you to do this here. I want you to do this here. It's like, I just want you to do you on in this box, you know. And it turned out great. I couldn't be happier with it. And now I got the bug. Like, now I'm always sitting at the piano trying to write more stuff because I just want to do another one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is a perfect situation to do it because, you know, quarantine yourself in a separate room with some recording equipment, drums over there, so, you know.
Why not? Yep.
Why not?
Just do it, even if it's demo, you know, just playing around the different instruments. Yeah.
Yep.
And I guess something that you know, your observations about playing with that band brought to mind of you and Zamba in particular, and thinking about those groups, like if it was, you know, all of us playing like with Ravello's band or those kind of things where, you know, we might be playing, you know, really difficult, challenging music that, you know, at certain times we're, you know, reading and we're having to deal with it, but being able to work with players that are really able to transcend that and be in a band situation where like you can tell that everyone's listening, and whether it's, you know, that everyone is playing at the same time, or it might be that everyone is listening to the rhythm section, or it might be just like a solo breakdown or something like that. Those are always the moments that stick with me for those kind of band experiences. And I mean, like, I know that, you know, playing with you and Ziamba in particular, that it was, you could always tell, like with great players like you guys, that your ears are attuned and everyone is just fully into it. And kind of going back to that thing you were saying in terms of just like, you know, your listening safety. I never had to worry about, you know, people ignoring what was going on, and that inspired me, you know, as a musician and as a participant in the group too. And so I think that those type of experiences are just really awesome. Like that's things that as I listen to and play in those settings, they give me those like, yeah, this is great, and it's really fun to be a part of. And seeking out those type of live experiences as a musician are great.
Oh gosh, that's like the best part of all of this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say about it though is it's really hard to do that at a high level if like there's some deficiencies
Mm-hmm.
in how you're executing on your instrument.
Sure.
It's like for a long time, even in undergrad, like I would be playing and not listening to anybody because I'm just trying to get the horn to work. You know, I'm just trying to work out this language over a really hard tune like Inner Urge or something like that. Like I can't be bothered listening to what the rhythm section is doing. I can't even play my own instruments, you know.
Got the blinders on.
And that's, I think that's how everybody starts, you know. Like no one is just like a great musician day one. So you have to be like kind of self-serving for a little while in order to get the opportunity to have your ears open up. Like you got to get rid of all the like I don't think when I play the trumpet anymore. It's just like I'm trying to hear when that drummer is playing his hi-hat on 2 and 4, or whether his spang-a-lang is really triplety or really straight. You know, that's all I got to listen to, and then just execute. You know. But those are the best experiences when
Absolutely.
And I think even more important is like doing stuff like this with the people you enjoy doing it with. Like a big part of getting any type of work or being a busy musician is being a good human first. Like, and all those people on the record are, you know, present company excluded, some of my favorite people, you know.
Right. Yeah. What would you say in terms of, and so I don't know, a question that I get asked a lot, and I'm sure that you do too, from beginner players is, you know, like what should I practice? And so maybe that's kind of a question I'm going to throw back at you in terms of, you know, okay, who are some players that you would recommend for people who are starting off to listen to and to transcribe, but also like who are some players and some recordings that you would recommend listening to for examples of that type of interaction that inspires you beyond, you know, the notes of what they're playing? Because I think maybe we're kind of in agreement that like that is, you know, even more important than, you know, the things that the individuals are playing, is like getting exposed to those type of interactive situations?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Those are good questions. I'll start with the practice. Like what are some things that we should be practicing? Like it's always fundamentals.
Yeah.
It's I'm gonna beat that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm gonna do another master class or whatever
Yeah.
for you guys soon. Not whatever. I'm gonna do another master class
Yep.
for you guys. And it's all about fundamentals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you want to be better at this type of stuff, you got to figure out a way to get the horn or your instrument out of the way so that
Right.
you can truly listen and absorb some of the language when you're listening to some of these great records. And like people to listen to kind of get some interaction stuff going. Those Miles records, like the steaming, the working, the sweating, the whatever they are, like those things are just like thrown together.
Right.
They're just like, we have to fulfill a contract with this record label. So let's go into the studio and, I don't know, let's play a couple of standards. That's like interaction with no rehearsal. Like all of those records are great for that type of stuff. And he's certainly somebody to check out trumpet wise too, because like his fundamentals, he doesn't get like heralded as he should. Like he's a great improviser. Everybody knows he's a great improviser. But his execution on the trumpet, it's so like purposeful.
Sure.
It's rhythmically purposeful. The sound concept is purposeful. His articulation is purposeful. Like he did everything so clearly, but like no one really like, oh, Miles was a heck of a trumpet player. No, it's just he's a great improviser. No, he was a heck of a trumpet player. It takes so much restraint to just play the solo on So What, where there's more rest in the solo than notes. There's like 72 beats of rest in 2 choruses. Like I feel like I counted sometime. But like he was a great trumpet player. As far as I'm having a hard time with the interaction question. It's just it's so hard to narrow stuff down.
I mean, would you say that some of that also in your formative experience just came from being able to see whatever group it was, but be able to see music live and experience that up close?
Yeah. I mean, you can get a lot from a recording, like on a CD or your Spotify or record, the big black circular thing. Have you heard about that? These records?
I've seen some of these before. College dorm rooms, they're nailed to the wall.
Yeah, that's what I put my grilled cheese sandwich on. It's just a big plate. Like you can learn so much from records, but if you have an opportunity, like if there's a theater in your town or like a venue in your town where if you recognize the name of somebody coming through a jazz club, you should go see them. Because if you recognize their name, that means they're probably killing. You know what I mean? There's so many amazing musicians that everybody says like throw a tennis ball down 8th Avenue in New York, not during a pandemic, and you'll hit like 12 killing tenor sax players. And they're right. Like there's so many amazing musicians in that town, in every town. But if there's a venue nearby that you can drive to see somebody you recognize, you're going to see something very special. And it might not be any better than the recording of the album, but it'll be a completely different type of experience.
For sure.
Which I really hope that like that type of experience doesn't go away for a significant amount of time after all of this.
Right.
I don't mean to keep bringing it up, but it's just so real right now.
You don't know.
But yeah, that's the best way to do it. I did a gig with Owen Broder. He's a sax player that we both know from Eastman, and we went up to Chicago to play at Andy's Jazz Club last year around this time. I think it was May. And I got there early each night because I didn't know anybody in in the band playing beforehand.
Yeah.
But they were killing.
Yeah.
And they were so good. And I can't even remember their names now, but it was like each night they played the set before Owen's
Cool.
group. I think they had like a nightly thing, and they were amazing. It's like I don't know who they are, but geez, I learned that night.
Right.
Because it's just live music is just where it's at, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are doing stuff like this now where
Right.
you know, maybe they live with somebody they play with a lot and they go Facebook Live and put their Venmo up, and if you like what you hear, send $1 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great that we live in this era now.
Yeah.
It would suck if technology was like 1900s and this pandemic was happening, you know.
Yeah.
I'd be telegraphing all this information to you.
Yeah, I don't know, post it on the town bulletin board with a the spike or something. Yeah.
I'd be on a horse and buggy, and the horse would be wearing a mask. You know.
Right. Yeah, things could be a lot worse. This is true.
Yes. Yeah.
Man. Well, on that note, with I think that we're all really inspired from listening to this, and I'm looking forward to seeing the masterclass, which we'll have coming up next. And we've spent a little bit of time listening to some tracks from your album Prairie Tales, and I recommend everybody listening to this go download it, buy a copy, support the musicians, especially in this time where everybody, whether it's the leaders or the sidemen, can absolutely use the support. This is a big source of income for freelancers, being able to make money from recordings. Anything else you'd like to add before we cut things off, Garrett?
No, I don't think so. I'd just like to say thanks for letting me be involved in this way, even though things are what they are. We just had to cancel our jazz camp, which it's a summer camp, and it's still months away, but it's like there are a lot of things that are challenging right now, and it's great that your place has you to keep trucking and keep trying to provide a service to the folks that are interested. So thank you for putting this together and letting me say a bunch of stuff that may or may not be helpful or true or whatever.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. My pleasure. Yeah, we'll get you down here in person next time we can also. So don't think you can just skip out on Fayetteville. So
I want to be there. I want to come down.
Anytime. We'll get you back. Sweet. Well, thanks so much, Garrett. And we'll sign off. Everybody stay tuned. Check out his masterclass coming up next.